may not know it, but there is in fact a technical test for Titanfall 2 going on right now that you can get into immediately so long as you have an Xbox One or a PS4. Guys, it's Skill Up here, and I wanted to tell you very briefly about my impressions of the Titanfall 2 technical test, which is going on at the moment. For any of you that don't know, you can actually just go straight to either the Xbox store or you can go to the PSN. You can look for or literally type in Titanfall 2. You'll be able to see it there. You'll be able to download it straight away and you'll be able to start playing immediately. There's no sign up, there's no whatever. It's an open technical test to anyone that downloads the client. So you can do that right now if you like. And I really recommend doing so because you know what? This is not a bad game. I've actually played Titanfall back in the original release. I was playing it on PC and I always really enjoyed it. I kind of like Call of Duty. I don't play a lot of it, but it's nice, relaxing fun. And obviously the guys that have made Titanfall with a spin-off, they were the guys that made Call of Duty, and then they spun off and they created their own studio called Respawn. Their first big project was Titanfall. It was exclusive to Xbox and PC, so PS4 players would not have got their hands on it before. I checked it out on PC and I always found it really fun. I think the hallmark of the series more than anything else is the inclusion of the way it handles movement. Its movement mechanics really set it apart. It was the first AAA sort of mainstream, shooter to bring in wall running. It was a really huge component of the first experience, and that was always great. It worked really well, and it sort of just was fun, and it was definitely a huge part of the appeal of the game for me, and it really set the game apart in those early phases. I guess the other thing that set the game apart was, obviously the Titans, and the way this works, and for anyone that hasn't played the game, is that it's a first-person shooter. It feels a lot like COD, except there's wall running, it's futuristic setting, etc. Kill enough people, and eventually you will get to call down a Titan, which is a big robot. You jump into it, and you get to wreak havoc on the battlefield. So I've always, as I said, had a good time with this series, but I've never really loved it. And I think this Titanfall 2 is really more of the same. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that what you enjoyed about Titanfall 1, if you played it, you're going to enjoy that here as well. And if you didn't like some parts of Titanfall 2, that's pretty much going to be the same deal. With regards to the movement mechanics that really helped define the first game, they've doubled down on those in a big way with the inclusion of a grapple system. So the way this works is that you essentially look at where you want to go, you hit R1 or trigger or whatever, and it'll fire up a grapple. And if it's in range, you will grab it, it'll sort of bring you towards that, and then you get a bit of momentum. So if you start controlling yourself on the the movement towards your destination, you can start swinging around places and sort of go real Spider-Man on it. And it's very cool, to be honest with you. It's my favorite thing to do in the game. I kind of just love, I don't even care about shooting people. I kind of just love swinging around the map to see how awesome I can be, like Spider-Man role-playing in game. But it works really well, and I think that with a lot of practice, and it does take some practice, mind you. It's very finicky at first. It's very much like, oh, this doesn't quite work. But with enough practice, I can definitely see some really amazing plays that are going to occur. And I know that, for instance, there's a perk that unlocks later on that allows you to hover in midair when you are aiming down sights. So I could just imagine the satisfaction of doing some awesome grapple and then flinging yourself into the air and then hovering in air and taking out 2 or 3 enemies. That would be really cool. And I do actually look forward to when that occurs. So the grapple system works, and I really like it, and I think it's a great addition to the series. With regards to the weapons, they've always felt sort of quite generic, but they've always done the job fairly well. None of the weapons that I used really stood out. They were just kind of like ho-hum, futuristic style assault rifles or shotguns or whatever. But I will say though that a sniper rifle in this game doesn't really suit it, because it's kind of it really defeats the purpose of this very run and gun style of gameplay if you're just sitting back on the battlefield just shooting people from a distance. You can do it, I just don't think you're going to be having a lot of fun, and that's why you really don't see that many snipers in this game. You certainly didn't see it in Titanfall 1, and I don't imagine you'll be seeing it here either. The map design for Titanfall has always been a bit of a mess. In games like Call of Duty and Overwatch, you get the sense that a precision engineer or a master class town planner was the person that built those maps. They're very carefully curated environments because they have to be. Map balance is really critical to create a great experience. But in Titanfall, you kind of just get the sense that this is what a toddler would build if they had heaps of Lego and they were just building some kind of small town, you know? And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I mean, like, the maps aren't bad. It's just that they're meant to be this big mess because they really do require a mix of like small enclosed spaces for close quarters combat. They require these really high structures to make use of the grapple, and they require lots of open space to give your Titans enough room to move around. And those three things in concert, small spaces plus verticality plus big open spaces, just kind of doesn't really work from a map design perspective. So I've always just taken the maps for what they were and just like, yeah, cool, whatever's no big deal. But you're not going to look at any map and think, yep, cool, that is a super well designed map, well done. But yeah, look, overall, as I said, I love the movement. The weapons are fine. The maps, they're fine as well. You know, so far so good. But ironically, the thing that I hate most about Titanfall is actually the Titans. Like, I really hate the Titans because I really think they spoil what would be an otherwise really good game. I mean, first of all, it forces some really crazy stuff from a map design perspective, as we've spoken about, because you always have to have these really big open spaces in your maps to make sure that there's enough room for the Titans. So that's one thing, right? Secondly, you know, the Titans are very much the antithesis of all of the movement mechanics, which I think define the best parts of this game. The Titans are very slow, they're very lumbering, most of them can't jump, they've got a bit of an awkward dash, they're kind of just there, and when you're in them, it just kind of feels like you're playing a totally different game, and not in a good way. I've never really enjoyed that component of it. And I guess like a big component of that is like combat in the Titans doesn't feel particularly skillful or satisfying. You know, movement is a really big part of the way that we feel skillful in first-person shooters, and you lose a lot of that with the Titans. You kind of just stand there and you shoot at stuff, and you hope that someone doesn't jump on your back, and that's it, really, you know. And I think that with the amount of HP that the Titans have as well, they just soak up tons of bullets. Yeah, it's never really felt rewarding to me. And the other thing is that the game is entirely balanced around Titans. Like, you get them way too easily and way too often, and you're literally always looking for your next Titanfall, because that's when you become really strong. That's when you can wipe out the enemy really quickly. That's when, you know, you can stay alive for a really long time. And the fact that most of the game is balanced around those, I think, has always been somewhat to its detriment. So, you know, for me personally, I would have much rather that the Titans be like AI controlled, sort of like power-ups almost, that you call them down and that they do their own thing and they buff your team and they can lay suppressing fire and all that sort of stuff, but you don't pilot them, or very rarely maybe you get like one every 2 or 3 games, you know what I mean? Like, that would be how I would do it. But obviously that would gut the core of the series. The core of this series is the Titans. So my suggestion obviously is dumb and it would not work. My point is that I've always just thought that the mechanics of Titanfall as a shooter have always been great, and the movement and all that sort of stuff works really well. And I just think the Titans are one part that I just personally don't enjoy. But the good news is that there's actually a few different game modes that you can play, and in this technical test you'll find 3 different game modes. One of them is a control gameplay, which is like you versus 6 other, just like 6v6, call down Titans, whatever, but it's just about controlling different points on the map. One of them is a sort of PvP, PvE hybrid, where you kind of have to kill enemy AI to collect, you know, currency, and you bank that currency, and obviously the enemy team is trying to do the same thing. Whoever banks more currency wins. It works really well, and I kind of like it, to be honest. And the third mode of play is what's called pilot versus pilot, which is basically like no Titans, and that is my favorite way to play Titanfall. Like, it's awesome because yeah, you don't get any of the bullshit Titans just coming in and like wrecking you. It's all about skill, and it's about movement, it's about the weapons, and it's just great. So I think, you know, the fact is that those 3 game modes, plus there'll be other game modes on release, plus the fact there's actually a single player campaign, I think actually make this a pretty decent value proposition. Like, for me personally, I actually do plan on picking up Titanfall later on. So for instance, Battlefield comes out like a week before this. I'm going to be playing the shit out of Battlefield for a long time. And I think later on, when Titanfall drops in price and, you know, it's and I've played a lot of Battlefield and I'm sort of ready to move on to something different, Titanfall is probably something I'll go back to and pick up just for a laugh. And that's exactly the way I did it with Titanfall 1. I didn't get it on launch. I picked it up later because it's just good, relaxing, chilled out, you know, low stakes fun. And I think the way that the game is shaping up at the moment is looking pretty good. So like I said, if you like Titanfall 1, you're probably going to like this one as well. If you didn't like Titanfall 1, you're probably not going to like it, and the reasons you'll like it or not like it are probably the same as, you know, from the first iteration. But look, decide for yourself. The technical test is available on Xbox and PS4 at the moment. It's not on PC because they didn't want data miners to get into the files and start spoiling the game. Fair enough. Appreciate the honesty on that one. But yeah, if you're on PC or PS4 or Xbox, check that out now. And yeah, do let me know what you think in the comments below. I won't be covering this game on my channel, just in case anyone's wondering. Battlefield will definitely be my focus, but I do plan on picking it up, and I do plan on just having a bit of a laugh with it every now and then. So yeah. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this. If you did, leave a like, and enjoy Titanfall. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.